All right. You know what time it is. Play the song. Yes, Shane Van Gisbergen has won his third consecutive Xfinity Series race on a road course. He won at Portland a little bit over a month ago. The next week he won at Sonoma. And now here we are, 3-4 weeks later at the Chicago Street Race, the Xfinity Series race. But back where it all started for Shane Van Gisbergen, and he has won once again on the streets of Chicago. Yes, this is the first ever track in his NASCAR career that he has come back to. Every other track has been new in some way, shape, or form. Well, really just completely new. That's just really the way to put it. But Chicago is the first one to come back to, and it's quite appropriate. Of course, 1 year ago, just a few days ago, made the 5,000 subscriber special on the day of. So thank you guys again for the support on that and for the total support. Anyways, we're getting sidetracked. This is where it all started 1 year ago. Of course, the negotiations started before, but Shane Van Gisbergen came to the first ever street race in NASCAR history and won the Cup Series event in his debut. He was the first ever driver to win his Cup Series debut in over 60 years. Now, here we are a year later. Shane Van Gisbergen, I almost butchered his name, and I've been saying it all season long. But he came back to the place where it all started, and he did what he did last year on the Xfinity Series level. Obviously, now he is a full-time NASCAR driver. He has been to numerous tracks, not just the road courses, the ovals too. He's experienced super speedway racing at Daytona and Talladega. He's experienced short tracks like Martinsville and Richmond. He's even experienced some of the most unique tracks in NASCAR like Darlington, and he will next week at Pocono. I'm excited to talk to you guys about that track. But here at Chicago, the expectation was win. If he didn't win, it was going to be a disappointment. He was a heavy favorite in the odds. I think he was 2-1. Maybe it was less than that. Maybe it was 1.5-1 plus 150. He was a heavy favorite coming into this Xfinity race, but it was not easy, and he had some pretty good competition. A lot of drivers are doing double duty this weekend, meaning they are running the Xfinity and the Cup Series race. And those drivers were Shane Van Gisbergen, obviously. He starts 5th in the Cup Series race tomorrow with colleague Kyle Larson, who we'll talk about later, AJ Allmendinger, SVG's teammate, Joey Logano, Daniel Suarez, who's also at Team Trackhouse, so technically him and Shane are teammates, Ty Gibbs, John Hunter Nemechek, and Josh Bilicki. So a lot of guys doing double duty this weekend. In fact, 3 of those guys took the podium spots, even though NASCAR doesn't do a podium, but you get my point. Chicago is the 3rd most populated city in the United States of America, only trailing Los Angeles and New York City. Obviously, those are like the most known United States cities, so it makes it's no surprise, I should say. But the Xfinity Series and Cup Series are in Chicago for the second time ever. As I said last year, the first ever street race in NASCAR history. NASCAR's gone to road courses for as long as they've existed, but they had never been to a true street circuit. They decided to make this 2.2 mile or 3.5 kilometer track over the last couple of years, obviously the inaugural event. But here's what's unique about today. Tomorrow, obviously they got a full race, kind of, but last year's weekend was plagued by rain. They only got 25 laps in the Xfinity race last year. So really, well, yes, a good chunk of guys got laps. And as I said, there were a lot of Cup drivers in the field today because last year, Cup drivers were not allowed to do double duty due to it being a new racetrack. They didn't want certain drivers having an advantage of any sort. So this Xfinity race, a lot of these guys, once again, not a lot of street course experience and really barely any from last year at this track. And the track had changed quite a bit. A lot of the drivers talking about how it was a little bit more worn out in some areas. Some of it had been patched up a bit, some repaving done. The track seemed different in a sense, but, same shape, same turns, same elevation changes, just some of the pavement things. But Shane Van Gisbergen put it on pole for his second pole of the season, that first one coming at Sonoma where he also won. And then in this race today, oh my goodness. When they say generational battle, this is what they mean. What Shane Van Gisbergen and Kyle Larson did over the first 20-ish laps of this race was breathtaking. And I genuinely mean that. I was staring at my TV like mind blown at what those two drivers were doing. Kyle Larson, arguably the best in NASCAR. Shane Van Gisbergen, the best on the road courses in the Xfinity Series, one of the best in NASCAR at the road courses. These two were putting on a show. You would think there was 2 laps to go, not that it was lap 2, exchanging the lead, crossover moves, diving to take position. As I said, it was breathtaking. It happened almost every single lap. Neither one of them could pull a gap. What we were watching was some of the truest, purest racing. No bumpers being used, no running anyone up the track. They might have touched every once in a while, but it was nothing severe, nothing to make a difference. It was so impressive. It was such a fun race to watch these two. Larson would get ahead, but then SVG would get right back ahead. Then Larson, SVG, Larson, SVG. And the story went on, and it was truly incredible racing. Then it just got a little bit silly and, altering strategies. And I think that both races are honestly a little bit too short, if we're being honest. Last year, they shortened the race due to darkness. It was only 75 laps, and it was supposed to be 100. And then they said, actually, let's just make that the full-time race. Let's just make that 75 laps. And then the Xfinity race is only 50, and with how much time cautions take. Anyways, side tangent. But Shane Van Gisbergen, he did win stage 1. He was able to pass Kyle Larson on the last lap of the stage, and once again, just their incredible battle. I still can't believe it. It was truly an incredible battle. If you're looking for the highlights, I'm sure the full race highlights will have some of it. NASCAR's Xfinity Series Twitter page was posting it throughout the race. Truly an incredible battle. If they have a full race replay, you got to go watch it. It was truly breathtaking. I was amazed at how good those two were doing. How intense that battle was. But as I said, Shane Van Gisbergen won stage 1, meaning he got 10 regular season points, but he gained 1 playoff point. So he had 11 playoff points heading into this race. He now has 12, and with the win, he has 17. But those playoff points matter. I'll explain them again because it is a confusing format, and we're going to do a full playoff breakdown when the playoffs start at the end of September. But basically what these playoffs are, it's an elimination format. Every 3 races, 4 drivers get eliminated. And you start the round off with the playoff points. You get 5 playoff points for a win. You get 1 for a stage win. And if you can finish top 10 in the regular season standings, you get extra playoff points depending on where you finish. So Shane Van Gisbergen right now has 17. So let's say he starts the playoffs with 17 points. If he advances to that second round, he gets to keep those 17 points and start with a 17-point advantage. Or if he gains more, continues to win at the road courses, win stages, he will gain more points. So him, Kyle Larson, amongst others, about 12 guys, stayed out at the end of the stage. As I said, because this race is so short, everyone was really able to make it on one stop unless you were on a crazy strategy or if you got spun out or wrecked or, you just kind of needed to throw something desperate out there to try to put yourself in a better spot. But everyone was on a one stop in this race. So Shane Van Gisbergen, Kyle Larson, and about 10 others, as I said, decided to stay out at the end of stage 1, and they only got about 5 laps of racing in. And once again, Larson, SVG, continuing their incredible battle. But at about lap 23-ish is when SVG and Larson and those other guys made their pit stops, their one and only pit stop of the day, adjusted their cars, got tires on the car, filled it up on fuel. But the rest of the field stayed out. So Kyle Larson, Connor Mosack, Shane Van Gisbergen all started in the mid-20s. I think SVG restarted 23rd, I want to say. And so because of this, he, Larson, and all those other guys had to make their way through the field. It didn't take long. Larson and SVG were 10th and 11th by like lap 4 of the restart. It was insane. They had fresher tires, about 7 or 8 lap fresher tires, and they were just straight up better than everyone else. So it makes that job pretty easy. But as the race went on, as stage 2 ended, which Austin Hill won, more cautions kept on coming. People kept wrecking, cars were stalling, and it kind of slowed down the momentum of SVG and Larson. SVG was able to pass Larson at one point, and he was actually able to put a few cars in between. And ultimately, SVG, he just kept making his way up through the field. 10th, 8th, 6th. And then on the final restart of the race with 3 laps to go, Shane Van Gisbergen restarted and in third place was able to pass Ty Gibbs in turn 1 and then was able to pass Jesse Love later in that lap heading into turn 6. An aggressive move. Jesse Love, the 2 rookies battling it out for a win. Jesse Love tried to throw the block, couldn't get there in time. SVG able to get by and was able to run away with the win. Kyle Larson had to settle for third. But it seemed early in the race that if there was a late race caution and Larson was third, I think Larson could have got by him. Larson seemed to have the better car on the short run those first couple of laps, but then once lap 3 kicked in, it seemed like SVG was able to reel him in, pass him. Not stay ahead of him because those two were just exchanging the lead so much, but just from my observation, it seemed like Larson was a little bit better in those first couple laps, fired off better, but as the run went on, Shane Van Gisbergen was able to get by and pass him. But as I said, Shane Van Gisbergen becomes the first driver in the Xfinity Series in 2024 to get 3 wins on the season. He has 17 playoff points, which is the most out of anyone right now. Once those regular season standings are official, someone will probably have more than him unless he keeps winning at these road courses. We've got one more road course before the end of the regular season for the Xfinity Series. That comes at Watkins Glen, a very fun racetrack. Those of you who watched Marcos Ambrose know that track very well as he picked up a couple of wins there on the Cup Series side in his career. But Shane Van Gisbergen comes back to Chicago and he once again does what he did last year. He wins the race and he leaves with the checkered flag. But this time, he leaves with some playoff points. This time, it had a little bit more meaning because he's in a championship fight in the Xfinity Series. But his weekend is not done in Chicago. He is taking that 100% winning percentage at the Chicago Street Race, and he is putting it up tomorrow against the Cup Series field. He starts 5th, as I said earlier. Kyle Larson is on pole for that one. Will we see another incredible battle between Shane Van Gisbergen and Kyle Larson? Well, it is to be determined. I hope we do, though. Those two put on a show today. It'll be a fun one, but let me know what your thoughts were on this race. Shane Van Gisbergen back in Chicago, and he once again slapped the field in the face. So, as I said, let me know what you thought of this race. I got to get going here because it is a national holiday here in the United States. It's National Fried Chicken Day. Now, no, not everyone celebrates it. No, it's not technically a federal holiday. It should be, though, but I celebrate it because I like fried chicken.